Hello and welcome to another AIC video. For years and years, I have done a ton of videos on very inexpensive laptops, sub $200 laptops. And as much as I love those systems and how much I felt like they brought a computer into homes that might not otherwise be able to afford one, they've always been kind of crap. You know, there's something that you'd use for maybe a year and throw away and get another one. They were kind of e-waste. I liked them. You could beat them up, not really care about it, just because you weren't going to use it very long. But then the price of computers really kind of went up, and so even like the budget Chromebooks and stuff were $300-400, and you could get $500-600-700 laptops, but they weren't very well built. Earlier this year, Apple came out with the MacBook Neo, and it kind of really threw computing for a loop because it was $600 and you got a lot of computer for $600. Unfortunately, they've had to raise prices due to RAM and other silicon costs. And so other manufacturers have kind of stepped up their game in an effort to compete. And this is one of those machines, I think, Lenovo hasn't come out specifically and said it, but this is a Thinkbook 14X ILL. And this was on their website for the same price as a MacBook Neo. $690. I think this is actually a bit cheaper at $698 instead of $699. And so I want to give it a try because it's a super thin, super small laptop that I think has that goal of being a very inexpensive and yet solid quality feeling machine for people. And it definitely has some similarities to the MacBook Neo, but we'll go into that here in a minute. Let's get some power cord out of the box. There we go. So we get, well, I'm guessing this is a 45 watt, does it say? No, it is a 65 watt power supply. This thing is tiny, but it doesn't have, this is the thing that plugs in the wall, and then you have a fairly short cord. So we'll see how that works for us. And then we have the notebook itself. And oh my goodness, this thing, just the initial feel of it, so small, thin, and light. Let me pause here for just a second, and I'll be right back. All right, so I did never buy myself a MacBook Neo because I have my M2 MacBook Air, which CPU-wise I think is slightly better, but also has 16 gigs of RAM, and I already owned it. And I think I paid like $700 for it. So I got a good deal on it, so I couldn't bring myself to buy a MacBook Neo, but I just wanted to compare. This Thinkbook is thicker, but I think that's mostly due to the feet. Oh, no, it is thicker, but it feels lighter than the M2 MacBook Air by a decent amount. So feeling wise, this feels more solid than this does, but it's not like this doesn't feel solid. Let's go ahead and open it up and see how it feels. We just have it in our hands. So the bottom is aluminum. I can't tell. I think this is aluminum, or is this plastic? I'll have to look at the spec sheet. And the top is aluminums. So flex wise, there's no flex to it. It wasn't one hand open. Oh yeah, it wasn't one hand open with the lid. And screen flex, very, very sturdy feeling. Keyboard is very Lenovo-y, which is a good thing. Let's go ahead and open it up and take a look on the inside. All right, so we got it open. It is captive screws, which is really nice. The Thinkbook is kind of a business class focused laptop. It's not quite to the level of, say, a T-series, but they definitely, it's more than just consumer grade. And that's a feature common on business class laptops, is to have that those captive screws. So looking on the inside, first thing I noticed is I was looking for the SSD, and the first thing I saw is it has SSD 2. So this actually has not just one SSD slot, but a second SSD slot, which in a more budget-oriented laptop is kind of crazy. It does have soldered memory. I believe they call it like memory on package or whatever. We do have a replaceable Wi-Fi, though I think this might be Wi-Fi 7. Let's see here. Doesn't say on. I'll have to power it on and look, but it is a replaceable Wi-Fi card, which is nice. So we have 2 SSD slots and a replaceable Wi-Fi, which compared to, say, your MacBook is kind of a big deal because there's nothing upgradable or replaceable on the MacBook. Another kind of bigger thing for me is we do have this really big cooling fan. I'm going to guess that this CPU is significantly more powerful than the air-cooled CPU, the passively cooled CPU in the MacBook. I say that because there's no active cooling in the MacBook, either my Air, M2 Air, or the Neo. So everything's passively cooled, and they can thermal throttle pretty hard, pretty quick. One thing I'm interested in is the sound quality of these speakers. They're fairly small speakers, not much of an boom or echo or whatever they call it, the chamber that helps the sound bigger. I'm actually surprised at how much void there is in this system. One thing I'm not seeing is a lot of Lenovo's newer laptops have easily replaceable USB-C ports. These look to be soldered directly to the system board and on the backside. So you'd have to, if you ever break those, you're looking at some micro soldering to fix. Let's go ahead and put the cover back on, and we will take a look a little bit further into it. All right, so doing Windows updates took forever. So it's been a couple hours since I last looked at this laptop. And I did uninstall the McAfee. I haven't touched anything else with the laptop as far as like pre-installed software or anything. But McAfee was just slowing things down so bad. Normally I do a completely clean install, but I didn't want to do that for this experience because most people don't. Most people aren't as fastidious as I am as far as making sure they have a clean machine to work from. A couple things, I did check the specs, and this is aluminum, not plastic. It does have a glass touchpad, which is really nice. It feels really clean. We do have a lot more ports than, say, on your MacBook Neo or on the XPS 13 that recently launched. And so I'm kind of going to, I haven't touched either of those systems, but I did watch quite a few videos and go through the specs. Here we have 2 USB Type-C ports, which both the MacBook Neo and the XPS 13 have, but we have an HDMI port. And on this side, we have 2 USB Type-A's and a headphone microphone jack, which I believe the Neo has, but the XPS 13 does not have a headphone microphone jack, which, I mean, in this day and age, I know maybe a lot of people don't use that, but it's definitely something I find that comes in handy. Overall, the design and look of the machine, I really like this two-tone look that the Thinkbooks have on them. The little bump out for the camera is not something that I worry about at all because it actually gives you a nice place to open the laptop from. Overall, it's just a nice, clean design. Very smart. I did play around with the speakers. They're mediocre. They're not that great. We do get Windows Hello, so it sees my face and unlocks, which is awesome, especially at this price point. Again, this was $699, just like the MacBook Neo and the XPS 13. In fact, if I go ahead, so just that comparison. So here we have the Thinkbook 14X, which is this machine. We have this Core Ultra 5 226 or 226V processor. From my understanding, reading the specs on this, it is slightly slower on the single core, but faster on the multi-core, faster with the GPU and better battery life than the Core 5, not Core Ultra 5, but just the Core 5 processor that's in the XPS 13. Now, by default, this one, again, here we see the price, $699 as of recording this video. This comes with default 16 gigs of RAM and 256 gig SSD. As I showed before, it does have 2 RAM slots. We have a 54.7 watt hour battery, which is slightly larger than the 52 watt hour battery on the XPS 13, and supposedly a slightly more efficient CPU. They both have 120 hertz screens, which this is a really nice screen. Where's that on here? There we go. It's fully, oh, that's the camera, sorry. Where's the screen? Display. There we go. 1920 by 1200 IPS, 120 hertz. So it is slightly less bright than the XPS, but they're both 120 hertz. The XPS does have a higher resolution and is touch. In my opinion, on this laptop this size, that higher resolution screen doesn't net you very much because you have to use more scaling, which a lot of applications don't necessarily like, and it does affect your battery life. High resolution means your GPU, or iGPU in this case, has to work harder to drive more pixels, and your battery life does suffer. So for me, I'd rather have the 1920 by 1200 display. The XPS 13 only has 8 gigs of RAM. By default, 16 does make it a $900 laptop, which is kind of crazy to me that you're going to spend that much more on that. Here's where I was kind of looking up the differences between the two CPUs. And I was watching some teardowns to see what was upgradable or not, and basically nothing is upgradable. There is no additional storage. So the XPS 13 does come with more storage out of the box, but you only get the one. A little bit of mixed bag there. I think the things that matter more are things you can't change, like the RAM, the CPU, the bigger battery. So that, to me, I think is more important in this system and makes it the better deal of the two, just looking at it. I mean, just the fact that it has 16 gigs of RAM and a slightly faster, more efficient CPU makes it a better deal in my mind. Now, what do we get for that money performance-wise? Let's take a look. We have benchmarks here. Now, I just did the T14 Gen 7 with a Intel 5 Core i5 processor. It's a little bit different processor. It's not a V, so I think it has a couple more cores and stuff. Regardless, pretty close scores between the two, even though this is technically a more efficient CPU. Go ahead and open up Fortnite, because that's all anybody does with their computers, play Fortnite, right? So we'll go ahead and bring up some Fortnite and take a look. Now, I do have my decibel meter to tell us how loud it is. I've noticed the fan is basically off unless I'm doing something like the benchmark testing or running the games. Alright, want to play? We'll just do a battle royale. I don't want a squad because nobody likes me. I just don't want to screw up somebody else's. I like this guy. Let's go. And even in this opening screen, this is some of the best graphics I've seen. I've not touched anything from the default settings. While that's loading up, can we see those settings? Yeah. So it's on auto set, dynamic 3D resolution is on, view distance is near, textures are low. So, you know, the settings are set pretty low. But we'll bump up the refresh rate a little bit, see if that well, that does work. Now, as far as noise goes, I'll have to shut up talking here for a second. So for much closer than you would normally be, it's at about 32 decibels. We move it right up to where the fan is, just shy of 40 decibels, right next to the fan. I have the music playing. Let me mute that actually. Oh, I never hit play, did I? Waiting for it to go. So the fan has ramped up. There's about 34. About 44, 45, right up next to it. This looks pretty good. I'm not getting any lag. I'm not getting any stutters or hiccups. I'm going to risk coming down here and bump these up to high just to see. Of course, that's getting me shot at. But yeah, no, this is an extremely playable frame rate. Alright, come on, just kill me already. There we go. Oh, is he going to steal my bush sprite? Oh well. Anyways, we'll go ahead and exit out. So yeah, so as far as like gaming, obviously you don't buy this for gaming. I specifically bought this to be a companion to my P1. So my P1, it's not the biggest and heaviest laptop in the world, but it's definitely not the lightest either. And so I've been using my MacBook Air, but it doesn't really work well for the workflows I use. All my stuff for work is Windows, and so having a backup system that allows me to do all the things I need to quickly, definitely a big plus for me. And this thing is super light, lighter than I was expecting. That's why I was kind of questioning if this was a plastic instead of aluminum, just because it was a lot lighter than I was expecting. So anyways, if you have any thoughts, comments, questions, leave those down below. I'll do my best to answer those. I will definitely make sure that I'll answer any questions you have. I'll do a follow-up video in a few weeks to a month-ish, or as time allows, and I'll answer any questions I can in that video. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.